Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy. My name is Christopher, and today we will be diving into the fifth alchemical process, which relates to Leo, which relates to digestion. Digestion referring to one of the 12 alchemical operations that take place inside of the consciousness. Sun enters Leo on July 22nd. This is after its strongest, highest point in the sign of Cancer. We begin our decline. This is when the sun becomes the lion of the tribe of Judah. And this relates to the heart chakra. In alchemy, the process is referred to as digestion. Leo rules the digestion process. Digestion is a process in which gentle heat is applied to a substance over a period of several weeks. This was traditionally performed by sealing a sample of substance in a flask and keeping the flask in fresh horse dung or sometimes in direct sunlight. Now, if we know that all of these physical alchemical operations relate to spiritual corresponding processes that happen within us, we can see that by sealing the sample of the substance in a flask, we're referring to the soul. And by sealing the flask, we're referring to the human body. And when we seal the flask of the human body, that is when we are being in control of the input and output of what our senses are taking in and directing outward. So we take the senses and we turn them inward. And everyone does this process after going through the awakening in Aries, going through the coagulation in Taurus, the fixation in Gemini, the dissolution in Cancer, and finally the digestion in Leo. So by the time you're at this process, you will already have turned your senses inward and start focusing on the inner energies and the inner life as opposed to the outer. This is also when we start conserving our sexual energy. And this is the gentle heat that's applied to the substance. As we know, back in when we're talking about the allegory of Santa Claus, we know the chimney at the bottom, the fire at the bottom of the chimney is the fire, the Kundalini. And when we're preserving our sexual force in the correct way, we're applying a gentle heat. And over a period of time, the substance in the flask begins to digest and finally starts preparing itself for the next process, which would be distillation, which we'll be going over in Virgo. So the alchemists knew what they were talking about. They hid their lore in ancient laboratory dramas that referred to inner happenings in the process of meditation and awakening. So when we're utilizing the process of digestion, we have to seal our flask. This is when we depart from external entertainments and begin focusing on our inner life. Meditation, we focus the light that usually shines, the spotlight that's usually shining outward, we put it inward towards the center of the spine. And we start living from this perspective that we are inside of the body operating in. And when we seal our flask, we're no longer just, we're not just endlessly talking anymore or just endlessly losing our sexual energy or endlessly eating, creating more energy for the digestion to have to use up. In this process, we are becoming kings of our temple and abstaining and living an inner life. Not that we don't have these outer experiences, but they are no longer in the consciousness spotlight. We have taken our consciousness and withdrawn it in like a turtle withdraws its limbs in a shell. And we've sealed the substance in a flask by living a contemplative, meditative life. And if we preserve the sexual energy during this time, either solo or with a partner, we're able to heat up our energies and our subtle laboratory and begin the digestion process. As we can see, we're going on the 12 processes of the zodiac, Aries being calcination, Taurus congelation, Gemini fixation, Cancer solution, and now Leo digestion, followed by Virgo distillation. Symbolism in alchemy that refers to this process of digestion would be the green lion eating the sun. And there's a quote here from the 16th century. There is one green lion which closes and opens the 7 indissoluble seals of the 7 metallic spirits which torment the bodies, until it has perfected them by means of the artist's long and resolute patience. So this quote refers to the patience that has to be withstood as the Kundalini rises and pierces up the 7 chakras in accordance with the green lion, which represents the heart chakra. Now, this also represents the negative aspects of the heart chakra because Leo has both positive and negative aspects, negative being pride, positive being courage. Also, negative passions come from the heart. What comes from our mouth or throat chakra have their origin in the heart, and we're able to actually cause harm to other people or bring love and creation to other people based on the words that we choose to use and the thoughts that we choose to think. So, symbolism of lion eating the sun. Jesus said, "Blessed is the lion which becomes man when consumed by man, and cursed is the man who the lion consumes, and the lion becomes man." Now, this has nothing to do with diet. This is referring to our ability to overcome our lower animal passions, such as anger, lust, and jealousy. When the man, blessed is the lion which becomes man when consumed by man. This means when we take care of our lower passions and our brute pride and our lower animal nature, that always comes a knocking. We transmute this energy, and through conscious meditation and contemplation, we are taking this energy and consuming it by our inner spiritual man, which makes the lion become man in a passive way. So the animal nature is being dealt with and transmuted, rather than, because he goes on to say, "And cursed is the man whom the lion consumes, and the lion becomes man." Now, this is when the animal nature consumes the man. Now, in both cases, the lion becomes man. The question is, in which way does it? Does the lion become man, meaning a lion, animal, beast disguised as man? Or does man triumph over the animal nature, consuming the lion, which the lion becomes man in a passive way? So we have passive versus dominant, passive versus assertive in this case. And when the man is consumed by the lion or the passions of the heart, then the man becomes lion, rather than man consuming the lion, which is referring to us overcoming the passions and transmuting the animal nature into pure consciousness. Every time we abstain from a desire and transmute it into comprehension, we are actually creating light. It's like a phosphorus light that lights up in the brain, and we increase this when we transmute and abstain from a desire or the animal orgasm. We're actually transmuting it into light. Now, on a chemical level, in the laboratories of the ancient alchemists, this is when a green liquid sulfate called viritol would purify matter, and it would leave behind gold or the soul, SOL, within the tomb of matter. Because this light from the sun that we are part of, that gives us our physical, mental nature, is what is trapped in the tomb of matter, and we are part of that light. Our consciousness uses it as a vehicle. Now, pure viritol is an acid that eats through practically anything except gold. So this is representing a process where we take out and start banishing anything in our lives, anything in our thoughts, anything in our behavior, anything in our emotions that are no longer part of our highest blueprint or the highest archetype within us. So the fire of the heart starts purifying, representing the green viritol or the green lion, the green heart chakra. and it starts purifying and destroying all the evil passions, all the insincerities, all of the greed, all of the lust, and starts transmuting it into gold, or rather not transmuting it, but purifying and eliminating everything except gold, or in this case, gold is soul, or the sun represented by the soul. Now, on a psychological level, we eat the lion when we represent the lion eating the sun when we're feeling uncontrollable feelings of wrath and anger, and we just lash out with these emotions. But now instead of just doing this and feeling like we're the ego and we're noticing this, we actually get to observe and feel this anger, feel the fire. But this time we're observing it from a perspective outside of the elements, and we now understand the pittiness, the complete error of our ways, because now we get to actually see who we are through a fed up lens. Before, we were identifying with the body, the behaviors, and the mental things that were causing the anger and the negative emotions. But now we experience it like a movie, and now we see exactly who we are for what we are. And this is when we start to change and transform. And this is how we start allowing even negative emotions to purify us. When we have a negative emotion and we choose not to act on it, that energy becomes light. Whereas if we acted anger and started hitting things or hitting the wall, or we just decide to act on our lust and we lose our energy, then we choose not to allow that desire and that energy to be turned into light. But if we were to sit through it through a careful process of self-observation, self-analysis, and willful suffering, which means that you're intentionally knowing that you're suffering for a cause, that you're sacrificing your lower will for the higher will. This is the lion eating the sun. So, in order to have the hermetically sealed vessel intact, to allow the digestion process to take place, we completely shut the senses. We square the circle. What this means is we enter a state of abiding in the essence, or I am. So this means standing outside of the mind, the thoughts, and the lower emotions, and taking life from an observational standpoint. Then we begin to refrain from the loss of energy, either through the eyes, the sexual energy, the sense organs of touch, the ears. We begin to purify them through beautiful fragrances, through music, beautiful music that, recommended 432 hertz, music of the masters. Everyone has their own preference in music, but essentially we're purifying the nose, we're purifying the ears, we're refraining from losing our sexual energy, either by practicing pranayama, breathing exercises solo, or practicing with a partner, and refraining from losing the energy. And this gentle heat applied to the sealed vessel or body prepares us for the next alchemical process, which is distillation. So the flask is the human body in yoga. So it's important to know that when we're in a hermetically sealed flask, the flask being the body must be in perfect yoga by practicing abiding your sense of being rather in the lower chakras, seated in the heart center, and then also in between the eyebrows slightly, while being slightly conscious of your in-breath and out-breath. You can rest in this state as your default state, rather than have your default state be daydreaming or losing your train of thought, or just having thoughts positive and negative and not really having a reason for it. You can actually recharge these energies, detached from thought, detached from the mind, and experience a state what would be referred to as samadhi, which would be beyond the mind. And we have to utilize this I am consciousness, or this behind the mind consciousness, so that we can control these four elements that are just very animalistic, very prone to delusion and prone to sense gratification. When we start preserving this energy, We lift it from the base of our spine and it begins to activate the heart chakra. And we activate the inner courage of a lion and we become fearless and we take initiative. As we know, the model for Leo is I will. And when our heart chakras are awakening this inner lion, we begin to do the will of the higher essence of our being rather than the selfish motives. So in Aries, we became cognizant that we were the Lamb of God, that we were the I am, that we were the emanation, that we were small partials or children of this emanation, the I am. And that I am gives us the gift of our individuality. And we begin to do the will of the Father who art in heaven rather than the will of the animal. This means we begin to take conscious action. And by doing this, we become what would be referred to in esoteric theology as being initiated into the tribe of Judah. So on two levels, of course, Judah is a tribe that refers to the Leo zodiac. Celestially, it also refers to the entire human race born under the Leo zodiac. It also refers to those who are activating their heart chakras. So it is all three in one. So to become initiated into the tribe of Judah, it means to develop all 12 petals of the heart chakra and become a compassionate, loving human being. And this is done through the heating of the vessel by taking our flask, sealing it, and applying the gentle heat of sexual alchemy, which will kindle the fires of the heart without spilling the energy into the fish gate, what George W. Carey would refer to as the bottom of the spine, where all of our energy leaks out if we're in riotous living. So Kundalini and the heart, or Leo, are intimately connected, because the fire of the heart is what, or not only the fires of the heart, but the intelligence of the inner master that dwells within the heart is the intelligence that is connected to it, the rising and descent of the spinal fluid oil. The merits of the heart are what decide if the spinal fluid rises 3 or 4 vertebrae or descends 5 or 6 vertebrae. Now, our goal is to rise this energy all the way up into the third ventricle of the brain, have the crucifixion of the oil between the pineal gland and pituitary, and activate the internal purification of the blood, mind, body, and soul. And in order for this to take place, the heart has to be the magnetic pulse, the magnetic it has to be the magnet for the oil to rise. It controls it. So if you're just a lustful person and you're preserving your sexual energy, but all you're doing is thinking perturbedly about others, or trying to cause harm to people's relationships, or you are defiling your body with certain bad habits, or these things, if your heart is full of anger, greed, or hatred, this is going to pollute the oil. This is going to make it slow and murky. And this is why it's said that the heart rules over the determination of how this energy rises. So this is why it's so important to live a life full of charity and service and compassion, and make our hearts light and simple, rather than using the left brain to complicate things, plan things, look for the future for things, and dwell on the past, resent things, become bitter. These are all negative aspects that are going to stop the ascent of the oil. So the Divine Mother rests and lives within the heart, and she determines how many vertebrae the energy will rise or descend based upon not only our actions, but our thoughts and our emotions. So what comes out of our hearts. So we need to become kings and priests. Aries would represent the priest in the high chamber, and Leo would be the king. And we need to become the best kings that we can think of, kings that we have not had the opportunity to see in this world, possibly because many people that are possibly writers, musicians, factory workers, or cooks, possibly are in the wrong vocation and should actually be kings. And nowadays, the people that are kings or have been kings are actually tyrants and should have had a different vocation, perhaps. But a true king is one that we can only imagine right now in fairy tales. And it's a very jolly, amazing, strong, courageous. I would say the archetype would be, between the ages of like 34 and above. And it would be a king or queen represents that area, that kingly mode of worship, that kingly essence of being able to dominate in the positive state of spirit, or the masculine principle reigning on earth in a positive way, and essentially bring about a man who would bring about harmony is a king. And this is the archetype that we can utilize and manifest in our lives by activating the heart chakra and becoming courageous and doing the will of our higher nature, and no longer living in fear or complicating things, but living like a simple, noble king from day to day. Learning how to dominate matter, meaning dominating the elements, not in an aggressive way, but in a masculine, assertive way, and be able to still and distill our lower passions and desires and transmute them into the human being. So we can become resurrected kings and rule over our inner kingdom. And as you can see on the right, we have the resurrected king who's going through initiation. He is the sun king who dies in the scales of Libra, goes down into the underworld and is reborn in Aries, because the sun takes this path of birth, death, and resurrection. And the initiation in this picture that's taking place is a king that's gone through possibly a 3-day initiation inside of a casket and has experienced a DMT drip and came out of his body and is now fully conscious of who he is. This person probably is representative of an initiate who has gone through some processes of purification and has gotten his body, mind, and heart in a position to where he has experienced an illumination. And I'm sure there's much more symbolism. Look at the lady in the back tending to, I would say, the flock. She is tending to the thoughts and keeping them in order. That's the female part of our soul that is allowing our thoughts to be controlled while the Sun King is resurrected. And now we have a quote from the Bible. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." Now the heart chakra forms the symbol of David, the upside down triangle and the right side up and the upside down triangle, which is over the heart chakra, which is a combination of masculine and feminine, or fire and water. So it's saying the root of David, or the heart chakra, or the Lion of the tribe of Judah, which is the sun in the heart chakra, is able to open the 7 seals. And the scroll and the 7 seals refer to our back and each energy center that is connected to a psychic, spiritual plane. And each one of these seals are opened by the merits of the heart. Only the heart can conquer and open the 7 seals, not the mind, but the heart. So we must understand that things are not so left and right, logical, black and white. There is a lot that has to do with intention and heart, and what is coming from your heart. And that determines, if you're able to ascend this energy or not. Because if your heart's full of greed and desire and hatred, you can be as clean as you want with, how you eat or, who you hang out with. But at the end of the day, if you are not taking care of your heart and keeping it a simple place, then it's going to definitely not help your journey in rising this energy up the spine. We took notice in the last illustration that Aquarius is opposite to Leo. And in the age of Aquarius, we're taking on this energy of the tribe of Judah exponentially. The opposite sign definitely has an impact. And because of this, we have a very big opportunity to utilize this to develop our heart chakras on a collective level. So when the inner master or this energy ascends all the way up to the pineal gland from the back of the bottom of the spine, it comes down up to the kingdom of heaven in the head and then descends to rest in the heart or rule over the world. That's why it says Jesus comes back, second coming of Christ. Born in the manger, ascend down, preaches to the Gentiles, ascends to the high cranium skull of heaven, and then begins to come back to earth to rule as a king. Well, that makes sense because Leo is the king, and this is where the inner master rests and directs the operations of the ego and our mind and the brains that we have. But in a discombobulated person or someone who's not taking care of their sheep or flock or their thoughts or their actions, this energy does not rest in the heart. It rests in the lower chakras, and they don't have full command over their vessel. So when we activate the heart chakra, we're able to become kings of our inner kingdom, and things roll smoothly. Once the heart chakra is activated, we're actually able to dive into the lucid state or the astral plane upon command and explore the internal planes of existence, just like we did when we were kids, able to daydream almost spontaneously. All we had to do was remember the mechanics of what we have to do. We have to store enough sexual energy for it to rise into the heart, nourish that energy. So fire and water are mixed. The air of the heart chakra cools it, and we begin to have enough energy to have emotional ability to detach from our body and go into a lucid state of dreaming, where we can communicate with our higher being, with other worlds, with other demigods, entities, Krishna's associates. If we reach the state of purity that we want, we should be able to ascend to more subtle realms of existence and acquire information. Because one of the main points of meditation, if we have energy stored, is the ability for you to acquire information after your meditation. So we have to do the right processes in order to open up these abilities. So the heart chakra has 12 petals, and the 12 petals are related to the 12 inner intelligences of the Christ or the Logos or the 12 apostles. And we develop each one through life by transmuting the semen of our sexual energy into Christic spiritual atoms, which end up taking the place of the negative atoms or the desires and passions and animal nature, which are connected to the black satellite that Thomas H. Burgoyne speaks about. That is the polar opposite of the divine realm, which we'll get into in later lectures. Now, the unconscious behavior patterns are now slowly dissolved and are replaced by the 12 inner faculties or intelligences. And these 12 intelligences are now used in the correct way. The 12 cranial nerves are activated when we raise our chrism. The 12 apostles are developed in the heart chakra. We activate the 12 inner soul powers, and the 12 petal lotus of the heart chakra blossoms. And this is how we return to Eden, or the fifth dimension. As you can see, Eden represents Earth in a blissful high state of consciousness, not even substantially materialized. So this would be before that divine realm materialized and actually became material. That place still exists, but it exists in a place that is not fully material. Eden also represents here when we activate our right hemispheres of our brain and achieve that high state of consciousness where we're able to project our own particular individual Eden and start alchemically transmuting our material reality into a spiritual higher dimension. And by doing that, that also affects collectively the whole world on a level particular and correlative to how much progression that individual made. So if the kingdom of heaven relates to the brain, and Eden or earth in the fifth dimension equals the heart chakra, we can see that when the soul is expulsed out of Eden, that is when the kundalini or energy that once rested dignified in the heart, ruling over the lower ego, is now descends and gets booted down to the lower root chakra, hence losing its state of bliss. Those beautiful feelings that you feel in your chest when you're a kid, the butterflies, the excitement, these feelings tend to go away as you get older because the kundalini begins to descend as your childlike innocence is kicked slowly out of Eden. So we're knowing that this is referring to allegorical states of consciousness. So by raising the chrism, we increase this vibration and the oil becomes more refined, replenishes the 12 nerves, which are connected to the 12 intelligences and petals of the heart. And the heart begins to radiate and activate the torus field to its highest capacity. And this makes you immune from illness. This makes you a magnet to attract your soulmate. This makes you have the ability to have clairvoyance, to be able to see things clearly, and to have a sense of giving to humanity and be in service rather than taking and only sense gratifying. So the 12 posts or the 12 postals, each of the 12 sacred zodiac relate to a part of the human body. And this is very interesting to state here. George W. Carey has some information on the number 13 that I found. And 13 not relating to a fucus, but the product itself. The 12 are, this I wrote, the 12 are intimately related to the 12 faculties in the human mind. The 12 apostles are here in us now as living realities. They carry out autonomously in order to bring about the desired result of the inner master. 13 is the product of the 12, or the teacher of the 12 disciples, for there would be no teacher if there was no one to teach. The 13th cranial nerve is activated within our brain once these 12 powers within ourselves are activated. We activate them by living out the drama of the Son within our being. The whole drama of the Son of God incarnating into flesh and being crucified has to vividly take place within our own being here and now. And George W. Carey, in the book God, Man, Word Made Flesh, he said something very interesting about the number 13, and it should only take me a few seconds to find this page because it ties things together and really debunks anyone who is opposed to the tropical astrology, and has to add certain things that would confuse the zodiac makeup. Well, here, George W. Carey explains in God, Man, Word Made Flesh about 13. 13, the operation of wisdom. The number 13 is unlucky for ignorance only, and so-called laws of nature may be reduced to 13. The origin of words and their application vary widely. Thus, the origin of 12 is a circle or completeness, or without break or sin, that is complete. All operations that produce something may be called 12. Being complete in order to produce the product is therefore the 13th. Thus, all machines are factories, symbol 12, and the product being 13. The zodiac, there are 12 constellations, the central suns of which constitute the signs of the zodiac. One sign arises every 2 hours, or so appears. There are 12 functions of the human body, and the seed or psychophysical germ born in the solar plexus every 29.5 days. So then there are 12 moons and a fraction in 365 days. The pneumogastric nerve, vagus nerve, that comes down from the cerebellum across the medulla oblongata, branches out of the lungs and at the stomach, and is called the tree of life. 13 letters. Also pneumogastric, which is 13 letters. There are 12 mineral salts in the blood, and the blood itself would be the 13th. David's 13 sons. And David took more wives and concubines at Jerusalem, and David begat more sons and daughters. Here follows the names of the 13 children. 13 children of Jacob. The 29th and 30th chapters of Genesis record the birth of 11 sons and one daughter, Dinah. The 35th chapter records the birth of Benjamin, the 12th son, and the 13th child. Jacob in Hebrew is circle, or to follow after, also represented in Hebrew symbology by a circle of men, each one with hand holding the heel of the one in front, and thus describing a circle, aka the heel catcher, or the zodiac wheel. The origin of the allegory is founded in the rotation of the zodiac, appearing rising one sign of the zodiac every 2 hours, making 12 in itself, the earth being 13. So essentially 13 would represent the Jesus, or the blood, or the son, the product, the man. Moses. The esoteric meaning is based on the marvelous operation of the wonderfully made human body. All of the parables, fables, or allegories of the human organism are related to 13. Moses, Joshua, Jesus, Christ, and all characters of the scriptures are symbols of the psychophysical seed that is born in or out of the solar manger in the center of the body. 12 symbols a circle, in the Hebrew meaning complete. The product of 12 is 13. Galilee is a circle. The Sea of Galilee, circle of water or fluid, hence circulation of the blood and fluids of the body. So Jacob may be applied to the body. Rachel means ewe or Mary, Eve or manger, the solar plexus where Mary and Jesus were found. There is no U in Hebrew alphabet, hence no double U. So V is the letter, or double V, hence Eve or Eve. The solar plexus is symbolized by many names in the Bible, all female, whether they refer to a man or a woman, because it gives birth to the seed. This wondrous redeeming seed is exactly the same in male and female and plays no part in generation, but is in the plan of salvation whereby the child born in sin may be redeemed and saved. So this is some interesting knowledge to understand about the number 13 and how once we activate the 12, the 13th, the witness, the seer, or the inner master ascends into the operation chamber and begins leading our life. We begin taking control of our faculties and living from a place of truth. So some forces that we can utilize from the constellation of Leo. Here we have the occult maxiom, or initiates are, to either to know, to dare, to will, and to be silent. Now we know Leo's motto is to will. And we know that Aquarius is I know. These 4 things that you can utilize will help you in your progression. To know means to be sure of what you know, to be firmly seated in the self, and to know that you are not the body. To dare is to take action, to understand that the path is one, and that to do it, you must take action and to be courageous. To will is to actually take action by knowing the 3 gunas and understanding that there's no option to not act. You will have to act. So you will have to will mean to act intelligently. And to be silent means to hermetically seal your vessel, not to take a vow of silence, but to be silent about the inner operations and inner workings of your own personal alchemical transformation, to not be flamboyant about it, or not to be discussing it, or just speaking about your manifestations, your spiritual initiations and lessons. Keep it private, because the more private you keep it, the more quicker it will happen. I believe it has to do with energy preserving the energy and making it so that you have like a closed system, so that your mirror is able to clearly reflect off your subconscious mind, and you're able to see things very clearly, rather than telling everyone about every little thing that will pollute that, and your perception will be intruded by other people's thoughts and their opinions. So it's good to have a private aspect to your life and practice. That doesn't mean to share with others in spirituality and discussions. That just means to have a part of your spiritual practice that remains private, only between you and your inner being. So we activate our inner Leo when our soul matures to a very high degree before it declines into the underworld to finally take care of the last part of the transmutation process. Now, the summer months are the kingdom of heaven, still regarded. As I said, the spring and summer would be the spiritual realm. The light is at its strongest, begins declining. We use various methods to help activate our heart chakras in times of winter or darkness, or times where we're feeling fear or like we don't have a lot of courage. We can use a mantra to help vibrate that center, which should be the mantra row, and O is in boat. So we can go row, row, and you can feel it vibrating in your chest. And if you do this for about 10 minutes a day, you'll be able to feel balanced and start bringing more energy and attention here in the heart. Where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're feeling like you're down in the dumps, slaving in Egypt, or all in the lower chakras, you can use this to activate that magnet and start bringing up that oil, that vibe. The sexual energy is transmuted through sound, mantra, and intention and imagination. So utilize the sound of the mantra O, ro, to vibrate and lift that energy up. You can feel it physically, but also astrally. And also don't forget, you can do these mantras not only out loud to produce a physical effect, but internally inside to produce an astral effect. So here's the stars that rule Regulus, the little king. These are all things that refer to Leo, the constellation Leo, the judge, the exaltation, the punishing tearing of the lion. These are all stars. And the deacons, Hydra, the old serpent, Crater, the cup, Corvus, the raven. The raven appeared in the Noah story. The cup, or the chalice. And of course, Hydra, the old serpent that appears in the garden, as well as our inner serpent that tempts us within. And then Israel, tribe association, is Judah. So the tribe of Judah refers to Leo. In Genesis 49:10, Judah is said, Judah is a lion's cub from the prey. My son, you have gone up. He stopped down, he crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of people. Now, whenever the Bible talks about staff, it's always talking about the kundalini, or the spine. And when it's talking about scepter, it's talking about willpower. So as you can see, all of these relates to Leo and becoming part of the lion tribe of Judah, activating our inner willpower. Psalms 91. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. So Leo would be the figure of the great lion, and his feet are over the head of Hydra, the old serpent, and he's about to crush it. So lion being the tribe of Judah, or the awakened heart chakra, which crushes the lower animal passions of the serpent and tramples it on its feet. So as we can see, this picture that's very common of Saint Michael with a spear in his foot crushing the Hydra serpent. This is all astrotheological. As we can see, Leo is ruled by the sun, and we talked that the sun was the angelic region of Michael. And here we have the God's power, because Michael represents the power of God, crushing the serpent, or the lower nature. And this all takes place when we do the path. These archetypes take over automatically when we give the right circumstances for them to appear. So our inner Michael, our solar intelligent power, emanates from Leo, our heart, and crushes the serpent, which represents the Kunda buffer, which is the negative aspect of the Kundalini, which has been taken from us from all of the trauma that we were born into and the misuse of our sexual energy without any type of upright chastity in the years of our life before initiation. And this is dealt with by that angle or ray or intelligence we refer to as Michael or Leo. So as we know in the Egyptian mysteries, our heart is weighed against the feather. The great work boils down to the purification of the heart. We know that in the ancient Egyptian mysteries, once you died, you were taken and you had to weigh your heart against the feather. And if your heart was heavier than a feather, you were eaten up. The heart was fed to that crocodile monster and you were taken to the underworld. And you're not able to ascend to the higher realms or possibly have a great incarnation or reincarnation until you were done with that purgatory. Well, this is also symbolic of the sun's journey as it rises in Aries, matures in Leo, descends in Libra, goes into the underworld of Capricorn, and is reborn, resurrected in Aries. Its merits are tested against the Libra scales every autumn or fall. The sun or the lion is tested and weighed against a feather, and then it's metaphorically given to the crocodile of winter, and then it's eaten up in the underworld and then redeemed. So this story of the sun is very intimately connected with our soul's journey of, waking up in the morning, going about our day, and going to sleep at night. But not only that, is also mirroring our journey after death, with death being symbolic of sleep and resurrecting, spiritual realm being reborn. So they all have their correspondence here in the physical realm as well as the spiritual. Never forget that. And, the great work boils down to pretty much purifying of the heart, releasing desire, developing compassion, and finding our own particular will of the higher Father within that resides in the cerebrum, which is connected to our particular ray of intelligence, which if we attune with, there will be no choice but to do our purpose. We will have no more confusion or fear. And we can begin to actually comprehend the harm we do to others through our words and deeds. And this is when we begin to refrain from them. So it's a type of maturity that everyone goes through on their path of the sun. And we know the inner master dwells in the heart, and our soul or our particular jiva individuality, which is on this journey of separation, has to merge with the inner master. And that soul or individuality has to, once it's merged with the inner master, that inner master has to merge with the being, and that being emanates the absolute. So then we have the power of the absolute under the impersonal power of the absolute under our control. And we begin to become magi and be able to consciously control the astral light. The astral light being the power of the magi. I have a quote here from Samael Weor. Quote is, "The celestial man talks in the form of hunches. His voice is the voice of silence, and his actions are always upright and create happiness." This is the voice of the inner master that dwells within the heart chakra of Leo. He speaks to us in a voice of silence and of hunches, which are basically those feelings that we get that don't have words or necessarily visions. So the inner being doesn't necessarily communicate with us through words or visions, but through subtle hunches, feelings, and it's the voice of silence. And if we listen to it, we'll notice that it's always magnetically pulling us to do what's right and what could create happiness in other people's life. The only problem is we begin to listen to the alligator, the serpent, and that sound begins to cloud out the small voice that we were given to navigate in this material realm. I refer to it as the compass. We lose track of our compass and we begin to fall into darkness. So it's always important to know that we have the celestial man within us, the spiritual part of us that is always in truth and perturbs us to higher actions. And we have the physical man or the natural man, which is running based off instinct. When we're in the lower three chakras, we're considered under the law of slaves of Egypt. When we open our heart chakra, we enter grace and are no longer under the natural laws or the hard laws of the karma, but now of grace and of divine love. That is not to say that we're like, okay, now that we've raised to the higher chakras, that we're not accountable for our actions. It is to say that once we're raised to the heart chakra, our actions and our intentions are completely transformed and changed. Our mind is purified and we return to an innocent state of consciousness that we had before we fell. So a lot of the actions and things that we now do are no longer coming from a place of sin or darkness or selfishness, but now there's grace added onto us because of the higher comprehension we now have by letting in this light, by igniting the fire of the heart chakra. I found some wonderful information from someone who taught esoteric Christianity in the 18th century, or close to late 18th to 19th century, by Mr. Fillmore, who runs the Truth Unity website. And they've syncretized the 12 apostles with the 12 intelligences. For example, we have Peter, faith, strength, Andrew, discrimination, judgment, James, love, John, power, Philip, imagination, Bartholomew, understanding, Thomas, will, Matthew, zeal, Simon, reunification or elimination, Thaddeus, life conserver, Judas. Now, according to the article, it was said that he didn't invent these correspondences. These correspondences were known since ancient times. He just brought them back to the forefront. So I wanted to show you guys this interesting information here, because if we know that each of the apostles is a representation or symbol of these inner forces, then this is where we can cast our attention to start utilizing and working with each one of these, to activate our heart chakra, to develop the 12 powers of the soul. We would be having the acquiring of perfect faith, perfect strength, discrimination, which is the key to yoga, love, which is bhakti, power of Mars, imagination. Notice the name magnet or magi in imagination, because the art of magic is to utilize the imagination to manifest heaven on earth. Understanding, Thomas. Understanding is our ability to comprehend the divine truths. We can develop this. Our will, Matthew. Zeal, Simon. Reunification or elimination, Thaddeus. Again, look how closely related these words are to the Eastern yoga system. Reunification, love, discrimination. These are all parts of the holy science of ascension. These are terms that have been used for timeless for millennia. There's never a time when these truths did not exist. And these 12 intelligences use the human body as a messenger, or like a tool to impregnate its forces into and birth these seeds. So, and in future lectures, we'll be talking about how and why and certain techniques we can use to develop some of these faculties. Now, from the hero of Aries to the king of Leo, in our journey in calcination of Aries, our goal is to become hero, to become heroic and triumph over our lower nature. Once that energy rises up to the brain or cerebrum or the ram or the Lamb of God, it then makes its descent to rest in the heart, to rule over the earth as king, just like it says in the book of Revelation. So we have to win the fight with the dragon, become warriors so we can become kings. And that will put an end to our heroic mode of worship, which is very more like an aggressive fighting against our lower nature, to finally entering the divine mood, where we can kind of enjoy a small amount of Eden, to enjoy our physical peace. Because when we activate our inner King Solomon, and we balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and we balance the masculine and feminine principles of our being, we are now entering into the realms of peace and are established in samadhi or Brahman. And we're able to experience very deep levels of meditation by abiding in the I am, and no longer fighting against our lower nature, but now we've entered into the divine mood where things are calm. And this is an alchemical process that can be taken notice of. That's why I highly recommend that everyone to keep a journal and every day write down things that they notice about their day. write down the dreams that they had, write down the practices that they've done, so that they can look back on it in future years and see the development and the progress that's taken place. If you don't write it down, it will be based on memory, which is very possible as well if you can develop that. So the card that's related to Leo in the digestion alchemical process would be the Strength Tarot card. As you can see, the Divine Mother is represented by the woman who gently handles the forces of the soul that are outpouring from Leo. Leo is the warmth and love and heart of the universe. And we utilize the forces of Leo in the right way by following the guidance and directness of the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is the magnetic light, which allows us to have the ability to control the serpentine fire, which rises up the 33 vertebrae of the spine. So as you can see, she's gently handling the mouth of this lion, who's a very potent animal, but with her grace and her subtleness, she's able to transmute this energy into soul. These cards are representations of energy and intelligence. Well, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this presentation on Leo, and I'm looking forward to going over the next process, which is Virgo and distillation. And I'm very excited about this because it's going to be talking about how the energy at the base of our spine, or the sexual energy, is actually distilled up the spine, and our body is an alchemical laboratory built like a distillery. So definitely looking forward to that, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.